Okay, so thank you for all of your wonderful questions that have been flowing in. I tried to capture as much as possible and keep them for the next round. So now I would like to invite the panelists to step up again. So we have Rika, Paul, Kim, and Shen Yong up here. So now there are a lot of questions on WooClap that you have submitted. At the same time, we would like to encourage you to take the mic if you feel like you would like to pick up a mic and speak, right? If there are no, then I'm going to start with my questions here. Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, go ahead, please. We need a mic up there. Thank you. Oh, the QR code again. Shui, could you please help? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for all the very insightful sharings for the past 2 days. And we have learned a lot about AG and BG, and also in general the adoption of AI in schools, and also like in education in general. So from the sharing today and yesterday, it seems like there's an agreement that the use of AI holds much potential in helping students to hone their ability in asking good foundational questions, as termed yourself. However, we are wondering what would constitute a good question, because as humans, right, what is a good question to me and to some other people is quite dynamic and it's quite subjective. And what assumptions do AI models, whichever forms it takes, make in deciding what constitute a good question is? Because when students, for example, interact with another human and to discern whether a question is good or not, and the response that they get back, those responses tend to be rooted in that person's embodied experiences and their positionalities. But we are wondering whether the AI models, they have such positionalities, or they only have one perspective, which is whatever models they are being trained. And we do think that perhaps interacting with real humans when asking good questions, such ways can allow the students to understand differing perspectives rooted in different experiences. And we are wondering whether such experiences are able to be reproduced when they're interacting with chatbots and AI. Yeah, thank you.
What is a good question? It's based on the context. You know, questions oftentimes have a purpose. Is it to fulfill your intellectual curiosity? Or is it to design something, or you're participating in some sort of activity that requires a series of questions? The example that I shared yesterday was to think about the Apollo 13 mission and what are the questions they didn't ask that led to the accident while in the space and things like that. So it's just different contexts. So good question could be a bad question in some places, and then also it could be related to political, economical, or so many variables there. So I am kind of I really admire, inspire the work there. People create things without any purpose. I don't know if they start with a question or not, but in my kind of world, I think everything has a purpose. I think everything has a reason, and hopefully that reason is a good reason. What is a good reason? I think that reason is to make us all happier and make this world a better place for all. And you hear that so many times from me. We learn to help make this place a better place for all, and we want to understand better about the pains and sufferings and needs of the people who are around us and who are on the same planet here, and then we don't want them to be left behind. So all these reasons are, in my opinion, it's good reasons, and we need to maintain them. And any questions that will help us learn better, help us to change, help us to move forward, help us to innovate, those are good questions in my view. So it depends. I think, how would you answer that question? Because he may have a different answer. You may have a different answer as well.
So So there are two types of good questions. One with a purpose and one may not have a purpose yet. So one of the questions we asked in the Making and Tinkering course, okay, I'll ask the student this question. Okay, sorry, I'm indirectly praising myself there. I was asking whether it's possible to create an indoor rainbow, right? It's not just using a prism, but usually creating droplets and creating an indoor rainbow. Then after asking a question, then I say, oh, why would I want to create an indoor rainbow? Okay, but maybe I wouldn't know the answer, but someone else may know the answer. So I think that's it's more like a curiosity question. So if you look at Isaac Newton, so one of the things that he did before he discovered optics, okay, he wrote his book of optics, he was actually blowing bubbles. And he saw colors on the bubbles, right? So he asked Isaac, why are you blowing bubbles, right? But it may lead to something that you do not know. So if you start with a purpose, it will be a subset of a bigger group of questions that you'll be asking. So in the other one, okay, it's contextualized. So I gave the example of the students doing this activity whereby they roll the marble and they're supposed to see how far it flies off. So the students can ask, how should I tilt it so that it flies the furthest? And other questions, where should I release the marble, and so on. So those will be very contextualized and they will have a purpose suited for the moment. Yeah.
I also think there perhaps is some disciplinary differences, or I'm not actually sure, because I think some of the most playful-oriented teachers I've met come out of like engineering and mathematics, and often we think like we are the most playful in the humanities, but we're really not, perhaps. But I think there are some differences I've kind of encountered along the way. So in Denmark, we have this big initiative from the government around technological literacy and AI mandatory for all almost from the kindergarten and up. And then that has to be kind of shape what would be the purpose of that subject. And the people shaping the subject came out of like STEM, science, engineering studies, mathematics, and design, but not from the humanities. So the subject in itself became very problem solving, solution driven, and purpose in that way become a purpose for solving something. And so I was in the council with the others and was the annoying one. I'm often the annoying one. And said, well, what about idea making as the other side of problem solving? Not every subject has a problem to solve, and not everything is the same purpose. So, for example, said, why would I make an indoor rainbow? And I was like, who wouldn't want to make an indoor rainbow? But then you said, oh, but it's about the droplets and something. And then I was like, but I just want to make an indoor rainbow. I don't want to have a purpose figuring something out. Why do I want to write a poem, for example? I don't have a purpose. I don't necessarily want to instill compassion or empathy. Sometimes I'm also just in love with language or something. Sometimes I just found a beautiful word. So I think these things are important to think about. Like, what do we mean by purpose? What do we mean by passion or desire or imagination or playfulness or reasons? There's very, very difference within like entrepreneurship, design, education, mathematics, physics, philosophy, art, and so on. So I think there's a disciplinary boundedness to these questions that we need to keep in mind, so not everything becomes a problem looking for a solution. Sometimes it's also just an idea that wants to be made.
So I think your question was a good question because you got us to talk, to share ideas. But I think that if I may summarize this, it depends on your attitude and your life goals and passion. When I hear about indoor rainbow, can we make an indoor rainbow? What comes to my mind is, I love that idea. I like to teach that. I like to share that with the kids in the rural villages somewhere. I think this will be a great science experiment. Those are the things that come to my mind because of my attitude and the way that I see the world. So if the questions are raised, it can be received as a different question. It could be nothing for someone. It could be something for someone. To me, it's a great question. I would love to explore that, and I like to make that happen. And I'd like to take you to some of these villages and do this experiment together. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have a question up front here. I want to encourage. I feel like personally that in academia we are quite shy about asking questions because we're not sure if we're asking deep questions. Do we come across as being intellectual? I think our students feel the same way. So when we ask students to ask questions, they are kind of shy, right? Anyway, so Leon has a question up here.
Yeah, hi. So I think it's interesting to have, that some people operate with purpose and sometimes the purpose is not clear to them yet. But I do wonder whether if a person, right, seemingly has no purpose, but yet you could ask the question, whether that person's ideas and the possibilities are actually shaped by broader societal factors and underpinned by certain conditioned values and assumptions, right? So you can ask the question, why would a student land on electromagnetic coil gun and not something else, right? How did that idea pop into their head? Why mosquito trap? So I'll speak for the mosquitoes too. Why not something else that doesn't trap them but still solves the problem? So I think maybe trapping is something that we normalize, that we see around us, and so I don't think our ideas are very neutral. Actually, I think it's shaped by values, and I think you also mentioned about competition, and you were worried about it. So I guess how do we get students to do that, but yet to explore, but be very vigilant about where it's headed towards, right? And hopefully it heads towards making the world a better place, more compassion and commitment. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just following up very shortly. So I think it's also again about a lot of like having variety, or like that can be variety in perspectives, but also toolbox is wrong here, but an understanding of where to go to achieve what you want to do. So for example, in design, you have something like value sensitive design, critical design, democratic design, speculative design, all sorts of design traditions that will do different things to you and for you. It can trap you or free you. I would say the same with family, the same with the community, the same with yourself. You can also be trapped within yourself alone without being able to grow because you don't have anyone around you that helps you grow. You can also get trapped in a class or in a community because they keep you back and always tell you who you are, even though you are not anymore because you've grown to be someone else. So again, I think it's having options. I don't know if that's the right word. And then if you don't know the solution, you might just explore those options, whether it's be like friends, disciplines, something like. When I was growing up, the higher education system in Denmark was very different from what it was now. So I actually built my own master's. So I went around in the different disciplines and took some courses. I took a course in Irving Goffman at sociology, took a course in Manuel Castell's network society at media studies, and I was from Nordic language and literature. And then I made my own course on chat that was like IRC, Internet Relay Chat, when that was a thing, like chat was just coming out, but there was no course, but I wanted to learn, so I made up my own course. That's not an option anymore, at least in Denmark, and it gave me a very weird education, and I didn't get very good grades because I didn't understand the language of sociology when I took a course there. I didn't understand media studies when I took a course there, but that was not important. The important part was trying to understand. So that's also a certain kind of purpose, just I don't understand this, and it tickles my brain. I don't know what I'm gonna use it for. It's probably gonna go horribly wrong, but I cannot not do this. And I think that's also growing, either on your own or finding strange disciplines or communities.
So to answer the question, I realized I didn't need a mic. Yeah. Okay. So the students who were actually doing those projects, they were actually trying to, if I may use sense making, actually, of really, they saw someone did it in YouTube or somewhere. So they just wanted to reproduce the results, and they want to see whether the nail can come out faster, right? And how to make it come out faster. So those were the questions in their mind, actually. And for the mosquito, I think they were interested in whether the chemical really attracts mosquitoes, right? And it seems, okay, either they place in a place where there are no mosquitoes, but we didn't do a proper control experiment. So I think there were certain, like what Rike said, no, there's something that tickles your mind, and you just want to make sense out of it. Yeah. So that purpose is sense making, though it doesn't have a wider societal, maybe the mosquito, if it works, it would have a wider societal implication.
To me, when I hear mosquito trap, my chain of thoughts go like malaria. And, when I was in Africa and I was in a mosquito net, some mosquitoes were so aggressive and desperate to get me, and they penetrated the mosquito nets, and I got all beat up and all that. But I did take the malaria pill. So there are daily pills and weekly pills. You don't take any of them, right? And so when I was first going to Africa, I thought about malaria, mosquito, and pills and all these things, and I realized that the pills make you feel depressed. Did you know that? You did not know that? It makes you feel depressed. So I stopped taking malaria pills, and I learned that you can take the pills after you get malaria. So you don't really have to take the pill before you go to Africa. But the chain of thoughts from mosquito trap, malaria, the mosquito net, and so forth, and for somebody, the mosquito trap that you invent, it could be a fun project, but it could be a life and death for somebody on the other side of the world. So it depends on what comes to your mind. It could be of just for fun, or it could be saving millions of people's lives. So it all depends on what you have seen in your life that will get you to think through this, and will generate chain of thoughts. And then you can build your purpose. Suddenly, those kids, if they've seen, or if they've been to Africa and then suffer through the depression and mosquito bites and even malaria, they'll be very, very desperate to make that trap work. Right? So then they will have a much higher purpose. So
we should talk over
Thank
lunch.
you.
Yeah.
I have received a number of questions around ethics. So I guess it's related to that, right? When Leon pointed out values are in kind of hidden, like implicit in questions, right? In the questions that we ask. Now, how do we guide them then? Around the complex ethics of the AI projects, right? So here's a question. For example, playback bird calls are used in scientific research, and this is from questions that have been accumulated previously. I'm reading it. So playback bird calls are used in scientific research, but also used sadly in trapping birds for the illegal songbird trade, and may affect behaviors of birds in the long run. How do we guide them? And I mean, the coil gun, I would not put it in the hands of my boys. So, I mean, how do we guide, around this? And there are other questions around, ethics. What is the consideration here? Could we hear from you? Thanks.
You remember about ammonium nitrate? It could be a bomb or it could be a fertilizer. So it all depends on humans. And that's how I see AI. AI is just a tool and resource. It's just augmenting our cognition and intelligence. But depends on what purpose do you have in your mind, and will you use it for good purpose or not, right? So the intention is very important. So a lot of people worry about, what if AI makes wrong decisions or unethical decisions and things like that. To me, changing AI, it's just changing the algorithm. You can change the algorithm, make it ethical. But changing human ethics is almost impossible. It's not just a matter of changing one line of code. It's not just a matter of changing the algorithm. Human biases, they're really difficult to change. AI biases, easy to change. So it always comes down to humans again. not the AI. Don't be afraid of AI with ethical issues and biases and prejudice and all these things. We worry a lot of these things, but those are easier problems to solve than human problems are the harder ones. That's
I guess we're in the business of humans, right? In higher education. How do we guide them through this?
So I think you need to know them first. Because I was puzzled. Okay, I mean, to me, it's naturally, I don't want to harm animals and whatever. So I was thinking, what's going through the mind of these people who do this illegal trade of animals? I think we need to understand them first. So why they do these things before you can come up ways to change their mind, if it's changeable. Yeah, so we always stand in a very judgmental manner against these people. Okay, I mean, they're wrong, but I think we also need to understand. I mean, there's criminal psychology, right? So I think we need to develop in this field and see. Otherwise, it will be just, you're on the other side, and I'm just trying to get you to my side. It's not going to work. We need to go to that side. Okay, hopefully we won't go to the dark side, but I think it's important to understand.
So if AI is like the fertilizer and the bomb, someone will most definitely make a bomb. I think would be like, if we are talking humans, not necessarily someone in here. And I think, and this will sound less idiot optimistic than I usually sound, but of course someone will take advantage of AI or whatever we would call it on the expense of other humans or on the expense of animals. And like, I'm a farmer's daughter, and we put growth chemicals on plants. Well, it's just poison, right, for some animals. And that we did for many years, and now we are like kind of destroyed our water, but we still keep on doing it. And now we destroyed our fjords or our waters, but we still keep on doing it. Like, in that way, humans are very stupid, and will keep on being very stupid because that's part of our human nature. Doesn't mean that we can't change anything. So how should we do that? So one of the things we've been talking a lot about in Denmark and other Nordic countries is teaching ethics as, mandatory course in all classes, especially those that are going to invent stuff. Teaching Bildung, dannelse, formation of your character as a way of thinking about if, like, there's a difference between what you can do and what you should do and what you ought to do. And I think those are the questions we need to talk to students about before they invent anything. They need to have character, because otherwise we will invent things that also are bombs and also kills animal, even though they make more food. And I don't know the right answer for a lot of these questions. Is it better to produce more food for humans or kill more mosquitoes? I don't know. If it's to be a not human-centered answer, like if we are beyond our own egocentric species. There's wider questions here we can see emerging with the Anthropocene and with the climate crisis and everything else. Like, we're killing the planet to preserve ourselves. Is that the right way to go? So I think Bildung, philosophy, ethics, and then perhaps some more C's to your 6 C's. So something like community, connectedness, care, and courage to say no. That's something that's taught in design at Ocean University, to say no to projects when companies come using your ethics. To say, I'd rather not help you invent this thing. I think we should not, rather than invent everything that's possible.
Yeah, so ethics and actually also moral courage is very important. Because, just to paint a gloomy picture, I think the world is a much bigger risk than before, because the power in the hands of individuals is very, very great. I mean, if you have nuclear weapons, it's in the military arsenal, is controlled by the government. But now you have AI, and it's like everywhere. And what you could do with it as an individual is incredible. So I think this ethics education and having moral courage is more important than the past, because of the power in each person's hand.
Okay. So in hindsight, do you think those people who were playing around with nuclear energy just for curiosity, do you think that in hindsight, do you think that that should not have happened?
Yeah, actually, I was also thinking, if the world was like itself 100 years ago. Is it that bad? Okay, less the world wars, but do we need to be so advanced? Because now we are on a treadmill that's too fast for us to run on. Yeah.
I think nuclear power is essential. Otherwise, we cannot run data centers. We will not be able to have the computers talk. You will not be using your mobile phone to call your kids. We need a lot of electricity, and the one most efficient way of making electricity right now, as we know, is the nuclear power. But there are many more inventions coming in that line as well. We're making it safer, we're making it smaller, and so on and so forth. So we need more innovations to create energy safer, more climate friendly and environment friendly and so forth. We just need to ask more questions about that. How do we make it safer and better for all? So nuclear power is not the evil thing. Okay.
So I would say definitely we should not invent nuclear power, just to take the opposite stand, right? But like if we didn't, we might not have computer, and I might not be able to call my kids. But then I would do something else, like before the invention of the telephone, or we would say no, I'd rather not, because the question would then be if they foresaw the consequences of inventing nuclear power. I don't think they did, but someone making the bomb probably did. So perhaps we should still invent nuclear power, but not invent the bomb. And the question would be, if we invent nuclear power, would someone invent the bomb? And so it's an impossible situation, right? There's no way out of the human trap, or whatever we should call it, rather than thinking through these things and trying to be ethical in your own character and on behalf of others. It goes for a lot of different things. Like if I see someone getting punched in the face, do I stop it, or do I look, or do I go away because I don't want the trouble? That also goes for mosquitoes and nuclear bombs.
Yes, that's a question. A mic, please. Over there. Thank you. Up front.
So actually one question about mics is whether the mic runner can be at an optimized position in LT.
Thank you very much. I'm Max from LKC Medicine. So thanks for all the talks. I just want to ask one question. So as Paul said, we should go for AG instead of BG. We should not treat AI as a tool to help you to go back for the traditional learning. So I just want to ask for you all, that is there any plan in your roadmap that you think in your discipline some knowledge actually can be replaced by AI, and in your curriculum planning, is there any courses or any part of the knowledge that you will have for your students in the past or currently, but with the new generation of the AG students, that you would think actually university no longer need those knowledge for the students, but instead we will use it by AI. Thanks.
So I can start. So I can see what happened to my courses and to a lot of courses within the arts and humanities. That's my field, but probably also elsewhere across the last 10 years. And I think that we are really at a stepping point now where the courses that have not changed need to change. So what has happened in my courses for the last 10 years is, when I started, I did a lot of lecturing, giving my knowledge to students on subjects, going through the texts, going through the curriculum. So lecturing and putting my brain into their brain or something like that. Knowledge acquisition. And now I don't lecture, and often we don't really have a curriculum. We have some assessment criteria, we have learning goals, we have some core texts that we will debate and discuss a little bit like we're doing now. And then they are building their own curriculum based on what projects they're undertaking. So if someone is going to, it's ICT-based educational design, but also goes for philosophy. If someone is going to investigate, whatever that means, courage in math teaching, to take a concrete project, then they might have to read up on the philosophy of courage, like there's being encouraged in stupid ways and in clever ways, like dumdristig in Danish. They might have to go into the math classroom to see how courageous math teaching look in action and do some field work. They might go back and build a website that teaches teachers to be more courageous in their math teaching and so on and so forth. So for all of that, they will probably use now AI to help generate the design, the website, to look up about figuring out what is courage on a philosophical and sociological and pedagogical terms, what's the difference, and so on and so forth. But it will still be them making the decisions about where to go, what to ask, what direction to take, and what to hand in the end. Because it's not just copying earlier knowledge, but trying to figure out what you want or what your purpose is, perhaps. So I think that change is really needed, and the people that still teach to the test or have a multiple choice or give their brain to the student, like, they're really in trouble now, because there's really no point in teaching that way anymore. There haven't been for some time, but now it's really hitting hard because of AI.
Yeah. So I shared, because I teach engineering students, so I think the hands-on with the physical world is important. And because it's a very big class, I can't tend to individuals, so I think AI can actually play a part that I cannot do. It can augment what I need to do. But in class, I would want students to still come to lesson and to touch things, feel things, and to see all the things that need to consider. It's probably very hard to prompt. For example, the marble rolling down question. It's probably very hard to prompt AI at this point. Maybe spatial AI will come at a few years down the road, but I think they will still need to be very tactile in some of this learning. So maybe they'll be more deliberate in the design of the curriculum. So knowledge will be done maybe with help of AI, but so this hands-on experience will need to be done in person.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that we'll throw away knowledge. Knowledge will have to stay. It's just that how do we help students learn differently is the better question in this case. All the learning, when we take learning process itself, it's not about presenting information, delivering information, right? That's the BG style. The AG style is to get the students to discover, experiment, right, and solve problems, and that's how they should be learning. And that's how I've been designing my courses many years ago when I started to teach. That's how I wanted students to learn anyway. I hated lecturing, explaining things. Why would I need to explain things? I want them to discover. I want them to find the issues and define the issues by themselves and solve them, and through that they acquire knowledge. And so the ways of teaching must change. For that, that's definitely a must. And then the way that we are engaging students in learning must change. There are some contents that they probably don't need to be teaching. If we take computer science, for example, compiler classes, those, I don't think they need to learn compiler. When you're taking a computer science class, you learn compiling, assembly, and all these things. People don't learn all these things anymore. Because it's more about contextual programming, contextual development. It's about the context you're understanding, the purpose you're understanding, and series of questions you are creating, and you're trying to answer those questions. And that's how you learn, not necessarily just lecturing and showing information, displaying and presenting. And that should have been gone many decades ago, but we still have people who are using the 30-year-old syllabus and not changing, not updating, and still trying to teach the same way. I think they need to retire.
So there is this funny quote that someone said that the future programming language is English.
Thank you. Now I know there is a question back there.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Louis from the School of International Studies here at NTU. So it's my first year of teaching. And we have to revise our assessment, send in our revised methods of assessment soon. So my question is on assessment. And there's a macro side to it and a micro side to it. On the macro side, when we go from BG to AG, you know how when the market system, for instance, was introduced, it changed the incentive system and the kinds of products that are developed. So when you go from BG to AG, how will the system of incentives to learning evolve? What are the potential good and bad futures that we can expect? And my micro question is on grading papers. So nowadays with AG, all papers are a product of student effort plus AI, for example, equals paper. So, but when we grade them, we only see the paper. Are there technologies that would allow us to differentiate between student effort and AI, let's say their use of AI? And thank you.
I think that the multiple choices, all these things, they are the BG style. I think we need to have an assessment that looks at the process of learning. How did they use and involve AI to arrive at a solution? You need to ask them, how did you go from here to here? Show me, prove it to me. It's okay, use AI, but show me what AI did you use, what prompts did you enter, and what result did you get, and what did you after that, and so forth. So process needs to be looked at. And that can be also leveraging AI too. If you don't want to read the whole process, have the AI assess this. I mean, there are many ways to do it. Also, in terms of the process, I coined a term called the collective intelligence ratio, CIR, collective intelligence ratio. I coined a lot of different terms. But the collective intelligence ratio means how much each participant, including AI, contributed to the process of solving a problem. And was it interjection of some idea, opinion, or was it some drawing, sketches? Was it some sort of a program? Whatever you did in the whole process, what was the ratio and who had the highest ratio? And that's a different way of evaluating human participation in problem-solving process. So assessment needs to change. Definitely. It's not about, do you know about the definition of something? Do you know the concept of something through multiple choice questions? It's definitely the BG stuff. It's time to graduate from that.
And do you think that it's still BG to, if we expect, let's say, a certain distribution of grades, the notion of grade distribution, do you think it's a very BG thing? Thank you.
I hate that. I really hate that. I'm more pro for competency-based assessment. If you get it, you do it, fine. Like a driving, license. You know how to drive. I don't care how well you drive, as long as you follow the rules and drive safely, go home and so forth. You are qualified. The same thing in schools. Why do you make your students suffer? I don't like curving, that sort of thing. Maybe you have different ideas, but I always like to look at their innovative minds and creative minds and those questions and the process of solving problems. If they solve it, they're good. I love to give A's to those students who solve the problems.
Yeah, I think actually we agree for once.
Really?
So I can say what's happening in Denmark at least. So we have a discussion about assessment and exams and grading and these kind of things. So the approach in Denmark when it comes to the impact of AI across at least higher education, but the whole system is the go-to Danish attitude would be trust. So we have a very trusting attitude when it comes to grading students' work. So we trust that if they use AI, they kind of clarify it. Perhaps some would say they have to hand in their prompts so they can see the prompting. I don't know how useful that is actually. Or clarify they used AI for this and this, like a co-author, a idea discoverer, a proofreader, whatever. The other go-to, and I think it has some merit and interesting thing, it's just very expensive, is to go back to oral exams. And I think I really hated that idea in the beginning, but it's kind of growing on me, because at the oral exam you can actually do that. You can have a conversation with your students, talking into like what I think is becoming more and more important, their ability to question, like questioning, no matter how, if they used AI for that or not, their ability to reason, their reasoning, going through things, and their argument for what they arrived at, like why is this a good idea, or why is this a solution that has merit, or something like that. So I think oral exams, perhaps, even though they're crazy expensive, at least in Denmark, might be a solution to think about. You can also, as we have done, which is a very stupid idea, build a hall in the countryside, drive students there that is kind of with lead, so they don't have access to the internet, and give them some pen and pencil and go back to writing in hand. I cannot see how that's the future, for example. So I think trust, oral exams, and then the type of exams. So in my exams, they hand in design projects, or they hand in a video where they talk through things, like having the oral part without the cost, or something else that AI can help with, but not do. I think that's the important part.
Yeah, so I'll add to, I mean, along the theme of good questions, I think maybe good prompts. So, okay, I've not tried this for my courses because, but maybe for your course, we can do an experiment to see whether the students have an intelligent conversation with the AI, and then you mark the prompts that they have sent in rather than the response from the prompts, right? Because that's the human part, right? The prompts is from the student, not the output of the prompts. So maybe a conversation history. So we probably can try thinking about that. And I think the thought process is very important. So they need to have some ways to document the thought process, and we will be probably marking the thought process. The second question on bell curve. So I think I liked the driving test analogy, but I think there are different types of vehicles. You have lorries, you have trucks, you have Formula One cars. So you probably need a variety of courses so that students can show their different competencies. So if it's just pass-fail for everything, you probably need a variety of tiered courses.
Just adding very short, because I also think that it changes our role as a teacher if we are going down this path. So it changes my role, at least in my courses, and I can see many other teachers at Aarhus University also changing here and abroad, from going from delivering content to trying to show how I think in my classes. So I have much more of a dialogue with myself going through the subject. When I go through a text, I'm reasoning, I'm arguing, I'm questioning. So I'm showing the process, my processes of learning or going through it or arriving at a solution or an idea on something, because that's actually what they would have to copy today. Not copy my knowledge, but copy a certain way of working through something. And then they can go home and work that through with AI or their sister or their cat or whatever. But that way of thinking, and you can also see it kind of spreading in class. So suddenly a student group will say, oh, but what Rikke would say would be so and so and so. So they start to copy it, and then they should not keep on copying. Then they should like go their own path and start to disagree with me. Like the most horrible thing that can happen is to have like 30 hands in copying my way of reasoning, right? That's so boring. I want to be surprised. I want to be provoked. I want to get angry. I want to cry a little bit at some of them. And all of those would get an A.
If only. That's great. Okay, now your question is very related to a couple of questions that were asked on WooClap as well, related to, bell curve and how do we get students to, because it says, one important element of play, inquiry, and making and tinkering is the acceptance and normalization of failure. But most higher education systems, with the grades, the bell curve, and competition, don't seem conducive for failure. How do we change that? Yeah. So it's I guess, yes, so we can have, let's not have the bell curve, but how do we get to that stage, where we we allow, we encourage students to fail through the process. I mean, the process we said was important. How do we get them to focus on the process?
So I managed to get away with the bell curve for making tinkering. Yeah. So one of the things that students are supposed to document on the blog is the things that they have tried and failed. And they are supposed to say why they tried something else, to give the reason. So there is actually a process documenting the thought process, in going from one prototype to another. But it's very labor intensive, actually, to go through all the thought process. But usually we're quite generous with grades. So yeah, if they've done it a proper job, we will just give them the good grade. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's very labor intensive. It puts a lot on the instructors. And I mean, we are a Research One university, so research, has priority, right? How do we encourage that? Any thoughts from Rika or Paul?
Yeah, so Aarhus University is also a research-intensive university, but there's shifts in Denmark prioritizing teaching as much as research. So to become a professor, you also need to do educational work today in Denmark. So there's a shift there, trying to kind of, even though you are a research excellent university, you should still understand the role of being a coach or a teacher or whatever we call it, because if we hand over the whole teaching thing and exam thing to teaching assistants or instructors, AI, then why are we at a university? Then we should do research somewhere else or something like that. And then our students wouldn't learn to the level of a research university, like not only being research-based, but research-producing in class. And I think for the bell curve, what we did in Denmark is, or at least at Aarhus University, but in Denmark in general, is to have some very clear learning goal and assessment criteria. And the shift in examination has shifted from, but there's already been giving, we have a numbered system, so there's always been given, the highest grade is A, right? There's always been given like 10 A's, we cannot give more A's. We need to keep the bell curve. Never made sense. If you have a brilliant class, everyone should have an A, right? If you have a lousy class, there should be no A's. So the bell curve, I never understood that as an argumentation for anything. You should have the grade you deserve. And so you might end up having to, as I did once, explain why my students did get so good grades. But luckily there was external examination, so let's have more external, that's also expensive, but let's have more external examination coming from the outside, standing in for the good grades and the bad grades. So it's not that I just want to make my life easy, no one can complain, you get an A, you get an A, everyone gets an A, I'm happy with you. Grading is not about me being happy, but being objective. So I think that's very important. Failure goes back to the questioning, reasoning, arguing. I've given a lot of theses, and my external examiner have a lot of theses A that were utter and complete failures. But they reasoned through it, they showed why they were failing, what they learned from the failure, what they would have done different, where they are now, how they're thinking. Don't need to succeed to get an A. You just need to think through things, argue, be reflective, take a stand, argue for that, and so on. Then you can be an utter failure, also in life, an utter failure and still get an A.
Failure in Silicon Valley, it's a great thing. It's a learning opportunity. So we embrace failures. And when you go into job interviews in Silicon Valley, any company, they'll ask you, like, what are the failures you had, and then how did you overcome? And you will get this question. And if you say, I haven't really failed anything, that's a really uninteresting person. What it means is that you never try anything. That's why you don't fail. Right, but there's a different kind of failures. If you fail because there's a lack of engagement, for example, you didn't engage, you didn't do anything, you were lazy and failed. That's a terrible thing. But at Stanford, the courses we highly promote interdisciplinary learning. And so we always try to do group projects, and not all courses are like that, but we try to mix students with a different interest and different disciplines. So for example, in my design class, I had students from different schools to join and then work on solutions together, which creates a very rich environment for creativity. And same thing in a single classroom setting, if they're all same major students, then I'll try to assess them before we start the whole class. I'll try to get their interests. What are the different individuals have different interests? What are the different backgrounds and experiences and so forth? The more we understand about each student, they all come with very rich experiences and backgrounds. And then you form the teams based on their interests and backgrounds and experiences and talents. That creates a much better learning environment for them to collaborate and embrace diversity. So diversity in classroom is very important, and we try to promote that. Leads to creativity and so forth. So those are the kinds of things that come to my mind.
Thank you. We're out of time, right? Okay. Now, perhaps just end with one final question. I guess a reflective question that we got on WooClap here is, play may have its own purpose, but does higher education have a purpose? How would you, what is the purpose of higher education? How would you, I guess, what do you think, right, in your own context, based on your own experience? Perhaps, any thoughts about that to summarize or synthesize what we have learned in the last 2 days? Thank you. It's a tough question, sorry.
I can start because I cannot summarize that based on my field. Like there's a library on the purpose of higher education. So that would be another keynote. But I think there is a purpose to higher education. There is a purpose to play. And that's why they are in conflict with each other. You cannot both play and do education, but you can be playful in education. And that is what my workshop is about. No. So I think honoring the purpose of higher education is very important. If you want to have higher education, honoring the purpose of the university is very important. If you want to have a university, those are open questions. They are based. They're based on some core values: truth, magnanimity, care, engagement, being honest, and other things. Those mean a lot of different things. Like truth in math is vastly different than truth in psychology or philosophy. But having character, having an academic character, doing your study, trying to find why you're here and what you want to do and what that means, I think that's the purpose of higher education. Having someone help you through that process so you don't have to do it on your own. Or get a coach.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think now we are carbon-based beings, and then now we are this silicon-based being, and we need to learn to coexist in a way that we still retain our humanness. I think play is a human thing. Curiosity, I think, is very important, and it ties very closely with play, actually. So you probably, when you train a robot, you probably don't have to train it to play. I mean, you just program it, right? But for a human, I think there is some intrinsic motivation and interest in this fun and the playfulness. So I think it's a very important element. It goes beyond the extrinsic motivation. It's very intrinsic in our human nature. So I think it's important to preserve playfulness in education.
Yeah, I like to share my prediction about the future of higher education. The frame, the model, the structure that we have now as a university will have to change and will change. And the purpose will also change. It's not about just preparing students for jobs that may exist or not in the future, but I think the university's role will have to change from just teaching to coaching, And so I think the university will be a place where a lot of expert coaches are available, and the students come with various interests and backgrounds and experiences, and the coach's job is to help them become who they truly can for the society. And so this will be more of a coaching center in a way, and that's one of the functions of the future university. And the other function is the research. Obviously, this is a place where the new things can be invented and the new solutions come out to make this a place a better place for all. And so the two functions of the research and coaching will be the main functions of the university. And that means that we have to understand students at a much deeper level, much more individualized, personalized, and then we'll have to help faculty develop the competencies of coaching, not teaching. And that's how I see for the future role of the university.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's put our hands together to give them a huge thank you for this wonderful panel discussion.